I'm not going to apologize for what I need, she said after I found the texts. I silently packed my bags. Her new man is a cheating, abusive monster. Hey, viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks, my name is James, and I thought I had everything figured out. For 3 years, I was with Chloe. When we met, she was this firecracker, spontaneous, a little chaotic, but full of life. I was the grounded one, the planner. I worked a solid, stable job in finance, not because I loved it, but because it was the smart move. It was the way to buy a house, to have a future, to build something real. While all her friends were chasing influencer careers and living on credit cards, I was quietly building a foundation. I wasn't just working for myself, I was working for us. I saw us as a team, a future. A year ago, I even turned down a promotion that would have put me on a fast track to a senior position because it would have required a temporary move to another city, and Chloe didn't want to be long distance. So I stayed. I chose her over my career without a second thought because I genuinely believed we were on the same page. She talked about our future like it was a certainty. I was all in. The past few months, though, something felt off. It was subtle at first. She was less present, more glued to her phone, always with a little smile or a private giggle that she'd quickly dismiss. She started making more sarcastic comments about my boring life, my safe job, and my weekends spent doing chores or saving for our future instead of skydiving or going to some new rave. I brushed it off, thinking it was just stress or a mood swing. I thought if I just doubled down on being the reliable, dependable partner, she'd snap out of it. She started posting more on social media too. The captions were always about unleashing her wild side and finding more in life. It was all a little performative, but I trusted her. I trusted what we had built. The betrayal didn't come from a dramatic reveal. It came from a misplaced power cord. I was getting ready for work and couldn't find my charger. Our apartment was small, so I knew it had to be somewhere in our shared space. I checked under the couch, and that's when I saw it. Tucked behind a cushion was her phone, screen on, with a notification banner across the top. It was from a guy named Brandon, someone I'd only ever heard her mention in passing. The message was explicit, a clear and undeniable reference to something that happened between them. My stomach dropped. I scrolled up. My hands were shaking, but my mind was eerily calm. The conversation was long. It was full of inside jokes, plans for nights out. And then there were the comments about me. She called me her safe, stable boy and said Brandon was her real life. There were screenshots of her showing him pictures of our apartment, of me, with captions like, "Guess who I'm escaping from tonight." My heart didn't break. It just went completely numb. I went into the kitchen where she was, making coffee. She looked at me a little too brightly. "Hey, morning, babe." "Morning," I said. The word felt like a stranger in my mouth. I held up her phone. "What is this?" Her face went from cheerful to a mask of irritation in a heartbeat. She snatched the phone from my hand. "What? Were you just going through my phone?" "No, I found it behind the couch." "You can't tell me you know what I'm talking about." "Who is Brandon?" She took a long sip of her coffee. Her eyes narrowed. She didn't deny it. She didn't even try. It was like she was performing for an audience only she could see. "He's just a friend. You're overreacting. A friend who's asking you what you're doing to get rid of me." She scoffed, the sound dripping with condescension. "Look, James, I'm not going to apologize for what I need and what you're providing, isn't it? You're a great guy. You really are. But you're boring, predictable, safe. Brandon is exciting. He lives in the moment. You live to pay off a mortgage that we don't even have yet. I don't want a man who's afraid to take a risk. I'm tired of being held back." I just stared at her, the words hitting me like a physical force. The irony was so thick it was suffocating. "Held back? I turned down a promotion for you. I changed my entire career trajectory so we could stay in this city. I've been saving every spare dollar for a down payment on a place for us." She rolled her eyes. "Yeah, and that's the problem. You think a house and a steady job are the finish line. They're not. They're just the starting point for someone who's not afraid to live. You're happy with a mediocre life. I want more." Her voice was smug, her posture defiant. "It's not my fault. You're just a stepping stone until I found better. I'm done apologizing for what I need. He gives me what I need. You don't. It's as simple as that." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. Her smugness seemed to feed on my silence. I simply turned and walked into our bedroom. I pulled a duffel bag out of the closet. She followed me, watching as I began to pack a few shirts, some pants, my toothbrush. What are you doing? She asked, her voice a mix of confusion and irritation. You're right, I said, my voice flat, devoid of all emotion. You should be with someone who gives you what you need. Wait, you're just leaving? I looked at her, for a moment truly seeing her for the first time, the mask of a girl chasing some ideal life. Yes, I said. I zipped up the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and walked to the front door. Goodbye, Chloe. I opened the door and walked out, leaving her standing in the middle of our living room staring at me with a bewildered expression. The door clicked shut behind me, and I felt nothing but a cool, quiet sense of finality. I crashed on a friend's couch that night. I didn't talk about it much, just said we were done. He knew me well enough to know there was a lot more to it, but he respected my silence. The first few days were a blur of running on autopilot. I was completely detached, as if my body was just going through the motions. I went to work, I ate, I slept, but my mind was a blank slate. I just existed. I found a small apartment a week later. Just a studio, but it felt like a palace. It was mine. The first thing I did was block Chloe's number and then all her friends just to be safe. I scrubbed my social media of any trace of her, not out of anger, but out of a need for clean lines. I wanted no reminders, no connections, no windows into a life I was no longer a part of. The hardest part wasn't the pain, it was the quiet, the utter absence of drama. For 3 years I had been the solid rock in a sea of her emotional chaos. The silence felt so strange at first, but then it started to feel like peace. I started lifting weights again, a hobby I'd let go of to spend more time with her. I threw myself into a new project. At work, I was reclaiming myself, one small decision at a time. The numbness was slowly replaced by a sense of quiet, clarity, and of course, she started posting. A week after I left, I heard from a mutual friend, Sarah, that Chloe was living with Brandon. I hadn't expected anything less. Chloe's social media became a performance. She was constantly sharing photos of them at expensive restaurants, at some concert, or on a weekend getaway. Her captions were always some variation of living my best life or finally experiencing what I deserve. I could almost hear the triumphant tone in her voice. It was all so curated, so desperate for validation. She was trying to prove to the world and to me that she had won. Her new life was meant to be the living, breathing proof that I was the boring guy and Brandon was the exciting adventure. For a while it worked. All of our mutual friends who didn't know the full story were commenting on her posts, saying how happy she looked. But the facade began to crack. The gossip started to trickle in. My friend Alex, who also knew Brandon, was the first to give me the real story. He told me Brandon was a scammer, a con artist who was known for living off girlfriends and leaving them high and dry. He had no real job, just a series of failed crypto projects and get-rich-quick schemes. Alex said Brandon was one of those guys who talked a big game but was completely broke. Chloe was apparently paying for everything, rent, dinners, all of it. The adventurous life was just her credit card. Then the real karma hit. Another mutual friend, Lisa, texted me out of the blue. She was still on speaking terms with Chloe and was a witness to the whole circus. She told me Brandon had been caught with another woman. Not just a text message, but a full-on public affair. Apparently he was a serial cheater, and the woman he was with had put him on blast all over social media. Chloe's life, which she had so loudly proclaimed to be perfect, was falling apart. Her social media posts became less frequent. The big, showy outings stopped. The captions became shorter, more vague. I could almost picture her looking at her phone, trying to figure out how to frame the public humiliation. Lisa told me Chloe was a mess, crying all the time, fighting constantly with Brandon, who was reportedly verbally abusive. The adventure had turned into a nightmare. Her friends were sick of the drama and were starting to pull away. The people who had cheered her on were now tired of defending her. She had left me for a real life, only to find herself living a real disaster. And that's when my phone started to buzz with a new number. The text began a few weeks after she and Brandon had their public meltdown. I didn't recognize the number, and my phone spam filter sent it right to a separate folder. The first message was short. Hey, it's Chloe. Can we talk? I didn't respond. Then came the next one, more pleading. I made a huge mistake. James, I'm so sorry. Please just talk to me. The messages became more frequent, more desperate. She started sending long paragraphs about how she had found herself and how she now understood what was important. She even tried to guilt me, saying, "You were the only one who ever truly cared about me." I never replied. I just deleted them. Then the friends and family came. I got a text from her older sister, a woman I had always found a bit cold and entitled. James, please just call her. She's in a bad place and you're the only person she'll listen to. I know you're a good guy. I got a similar message from her best friend. You're being so cruel, James. She's learned her lesson. You need to be the bigger person here. It was pure hypocrisy. These were the same people who had enabled her behavior, who had laughed at her comments about my boring life. Now they wanted me to ride in on a white horse to save their toxic friend from the consequences of her own actions. I blocked every single one of them without a second thought. The final confrontation happened on a Saturday afternoon. I had just finished moving into my new place, a small 2-bedroom condo in a nicer part of town that I had secured a great deal on. My friends and a few CO workers were there helping me set up furniture, and we were ordering pizza and just hanging out. The air was filled with laughter and good energy. I had never felt more at peace, more in control of my own life. As I was getting my keys to let the pizza delivery guy in, I saw a familiar car pull up outside my building. My stomach didn't drop. My heart didn't race. It was just an annoyance, like a fly buzzing in my ear. Chloe stepped out of the car looking tired and pale. Her hair was messy and she wasn't wearing the designer clothes she used to flaunt. She looked small. She walked up to me, her eyes darting between me and the people laughing behind me. James, she said, her voice soft and shaky. It was a complete reversal from her smug condescension. Chloe, I replied, my voice calm flat. What are you doing here? I had to see you. I had to talk to you, she said, her eyes welling up with tears. I'm so sorry. I was an idiot. Brandon, he's a monster. He cheated on me. He stole my money. He said some horrible things. Everything he promised was a lie. I realized I made a huge mistake leaving you. You were the only one who was ever real. The tears started to fall, and she was doing a good job of looking completely broken. A few months ago, this would have wrecked me. It would have made me feel sorry for her, but now it felt like an act, an ill-rehearsed performance. You said you weren't going to apologize for what you need, I said, my voice steady, my eyes fixed on hers. I didn't say it with anger or a smirk. I said it like a simple fact. She flinched. I know, but I was wrong. I was so wrong. I miss you so much, James. I miss our life, the real stable life you were building for us. And you said I was just a stepping stone until you found better, I continued, ignoring her plea. I remember that. You were right. Her face went blank. The tears stopped. What are you talking about? You were a stepping stone for me too, I said. You were a part of my life, but you were never the whole story. You taught me a valuable lesson. You taught me that my worth isn't in what I can provide for someone else, and that the only person who can hold me back is me. You gave me the push I needed to chase the life I deserve. I got that promotion I turned down for you. I bought this place on my own. I have my own happiness now. I gestured to the open door behind me, the sound of laughter spilling out. This is the life I've built. She looked at me, then at the door, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and dawning horror. She saw a life she had no part in, and she knew she had no one to blame but herself. Her face twisted with anger. The mask of a damsel in distress fell away. So that's it. After everything, that's all you have to say? You're just going to turn your back on me? She hissed. I just smiled. A real genuine smile. I've already moved on, Chloe. I don't think about you. You're not part of my life anymore. This is not your problem, and it's certainly not mine. Goodbye. I stepped back inside my condo, letting the door close quietly but definitively. I didn't even turn to see if she was still there. I didn't need to. I knew she was irrelevant. I was home and she was on the outside looking in. The silence was back, but this time it was a symphony. Thanks for watching.